Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me.
Hell no.
John Fink.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
Give it to you.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph Children.
DJ Khaled, you not a big DJ Khaled guy?
Hands thrown up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastner.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
They have no swag. They have no nothing.
Terrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
Hello and welcome in to Field of 68 After Dark. Yeah, that was a preview of what we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. Welcome into the show here on a Monday. We're on SiriusXM. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We are on X. So that is where you can find us on all our various platforms. I'm John Martin holding it down tonight, joined by Rob Dauster, joined by a man who said he wants a round two. Yet last night was not enough. Kevin Sweeney wanted more. So he is back tonight with us on After Dark. Good to be with you guys as always. Big show. It's Overreaction Monday. We got some spicy ones, so we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But as always, the results of the night. Let's start with the North Carolina Tar Heels. It's been a very interesting month for them after they did knock off Duke. Some tough L's, some close wins. Another one tonight, Rob, as a 15-point favorite. Just hold on, despite Miami being down a couple of guys, 75-71. Of course, the story in this one, RJ Davis, 42 points per ESPN Stats and Info. That is tied for the most points in North Carolina history in the last 50 seasons. I believe with Shammond Williams, who did it in 1998. So a huge night. There's the graphic there. You see it. I mean, you got to go way back. I mean, you're talking 60s and 70s before you talk about people that did a better job than RJ Davis did tonight of scoring the ball. Let's start with the team win, though, Rob. What have you made of North Carolina? No other player scored in double figures for them. So these games have been tight. These games have been very interesting for them over the last few weeks. What do you make of the Tar Heels right now?
Well, the biggest concern that I have is the way that they close this thing out. I think that Miami went on a 12-0 run in a 2-minute stretch to turn what was a 15-point blowout into a game that ended up going down to one possession. And then they missed 5 straight free throws with a chance to take a 2-possession lead in the final. It was like final 12 seconds or something like that. So they kind of made this thing a lot more interesting than it needed to be. They played well enough to cover. I wasn't complaining. I was on the under, so that worked out pretty well for me. But with North Carolina, I always come back to the fact that I don't know that I fully trust what they are on the defensive end of the floor. If we're talking about them making a run to a national title, right? I love what they are with Elliot Cadeau and RJ Davis in the backcourt. I think the fact that RJ Davis has been allowed to be the guy offensively and not have to worry about being the point guard, not have to worry about facilitating, not have to worry about doing anything other than what he did tonight, and that's going and getting buckets. I think that's worked out really, really well for them. Obviously, Harrison Ingram has been a fantastic addition. He looks like the guy that was a McDonald's All-American back in 2021. Cormac Ryan's done good things, even though he didn't really shoot the ball well tonight, and Armando is Armando. I think that what makes North Carolina so dangerous, Sweeney, is that in the back of your mind, there is always the potential for RJ Davis to do what he did tonight. And outside of him, they didn't really play all that well. They get 33 points and 13 for 39 shooting for guys not named RJ tonight. And they still found a way to win relatively. It got a little close down the stretch, but it was a relatively comfortable win that should have probably been a double-digit win. When they're at their best, this is a really damn good basketball team.
Yeah, look, I think the way I would put it with North Carolina, and this is something that Harris Ingram said to me when I was down there in January, like their role allocation is outstanding. Like everybody understands who they are on this team. And that starts with RJ Davis, right? Like they trust RJ Davis to go create shots in big moments of games, right? There is no question of, are we posting it to Baycott? Is there another guy who's going to create it, right? Like they want the ball in RJ's hands. They can clear out. He can go get one. I thought, if anything, their offense bogged down today in those final possessions when Miami made that run because they went into such stall mode and Miami just blitzed him and forced it out of his hands and no one else really knew what to do. But I think for the most part, it's been a strength of their team all year is that they just have guys who are bought into their roles today it felt like everyone outside of RJ didn't play particularly well. Obviously, Ingram and Ryan, I think, were a combined 2 for 14 from 3, I want to say. That's not a way to win most games, but when you have RJ Davis and you could have a special performance like that, that's the recipe to be able to win, 6 in a row in March. And so, look, I didn't think it was a great performance from Carolina today against a Miami team that was very undermanned, but it was enough to win, and a reminder of just how good RJ Davis is.
Yeah, and in February and late February, when everybody's sort of, especially a team like Carolina at this point, they're just sort of looking to the NCAA tournament. There is something to be said for just finding ways to not lose games. Lots of teams are losing games as we sort of stumble to the end here, and they are finding ways to win most of them. So there's value in that. Rob, just a follow up discussion here on RJ, because it was an efficient 42. It was 14 of 22 from the field, as you see there. It does feel like Player of the Year is just wrapped up, like that's a foregone conclusion with Edey there. But sort of where does the discussion of RJ in the echelon of great college players start?
I think it's a very easy argument to make that he needs to be a first-team All-American guard, right? I think that you look at Tristan Newton, you look at Tyler Kolek, you look at some of these other guys around the country. There's a lot of really good guard play in college basketball this season. But for me, if I was picking a team right now, I think Jamal Shead and RJ Davis would be the 2 guys that I would have as my starting backcourt when it comes to first-team All-Americans. And a lot of that is just because of how efficient he can be when he is scoring the ball like this. Look, you go 14 for 22 and 7-11 from 3, right? Like that's not an easy thing to do. And I know Miami doesn't really play all that much defense, and that's kind of who they are. But I think the fact that he has been allowed to be unleashed here, you watch this and it kind of makes me wonder what would have happened in the last couple of years of North Carolina if that backcourt was better suited to playing together, right? You see Caleb Love this year having an All-American caliber season. You see RJ Davis this year having an All-American caliber season. And last season, they were in the same backcourt playing together with Armando Bacot at the 5. And they weren't able to get to the NCAA tournament. And I think that, one, kind of tells you how bad things got between them. But it's also just it drives home this idea that the fit has to be there, right? It doesn't matter how much talent you put together. It's not like we're playing a video game here. This isn't NCAA basketball 2025 where you just kind of put players on the court and you figure it out and you go play, right? The pieces have to fit. The personalities have to fit. The talents have to fit. And RJ Davis next to Elliot Cadeau, who doesn't want to do anything but pass, right? Like the whole knock on him is he can't really shoot. He don't want to do anything but pass. RJ Davis doesn't want to do anything but shoot. You put them together and it's a great fit. Caleb Love is out there with a guy in Kai Boswell who seems like he's scared to shoot, right? And you put him next to him, and all of a sudden you got a dude that all he wants to do is shoot. It works. It fits. And I think that this is seeing what those 2 kids are doing this season, seeing the way that their teams are having success this season, and seeing what they were last year when they were forced to try to survive together in the same backcourt. Personalities fit, man. Like all of that stuff matters so much, and I don't think we really give it enough consideration when we are kind of projecting some of these teams out.
That's why it works, baby. That's why it works. You can't be an extrovert and marry an extrovert. You know what I mean? It's like that's a divorce. You know what I mean? Like you have to have a little bit of balance in your life, Rob. So yeah, you can't put Caleb Love with somebody that doesn't enjoy.
Hey, John. Every single marriage has one person that does the dishes as soon as that dish is dirty, and one person that leaves it in the sink to soak, because you got to make sure that the dishes soak before you properly clean them, right? Every marriage has to have that combination, and every backcourt has to have a guy that wants to pass and a guy that wants to shoot. It just makes sense.
Yeah, you have to have a little bit of a balance there. I want to touch on Miami a little bit, Sweeney. I believe this is their 7th loss in a row. So, of course, a team that went to the Final Four a year ago. Is this sort of feeling like the end for Jim? And if so, how good is that job in the ACC?
Look, I think Jim Larinaga gets to coach as long as he wants because he's Jim Larinaga, and he is. He went to a Final Four last year. Went to an Elite Eight. The year before that. Obviously, has done a phenomenal job resurrecting this Miami program. But I don't think anyone would blame him if he wanted to go enjoy retirement, right? I think in most cases, you still see kind of the joy that he brings to the table, even in his old age, to coaching the game. But look, I mean, we've seen a lot of younger guys want to walk away. So especially with the challenges of this year, whether it's been the injuries they've dealt with Pack and Poplar, or some of the just inconsistencies and struggles, the guys that they invested a lot in. Would I be shocked if this is it for Jim? I wouldn't be. I'm sure it'd be a sought after job. Obviously, there's two guys in the state of Florida who are doing a phenomenal job at lower levels, in Dusty May and Amir Abdur-Rahim, that I think would be guys you would mention for it, and we'll see what happens. But I'm not wishing Jim Larinaga into retirement, because I think he's obviously done a phenomenal job, had an incredible career. But I think it would be a sought after job if it opens. Just another one to add to the list. I mean, it's going to be a very chaotic carousel, and we'll see what happens with Miami. But I think it is worth noting. I mean, look, they had 3 straight years where they missed the tournament. A lot of people wrote Jim Larinaga off. He turned around, went to the Elite Eight, and then the Final Four the next 2 years. So certainly not closing the door on him turning it around.
Yeah, and I think that he also kind of legitimizes himself, right? Because those 3 years where they went to the tournament or didn't go to the tournament, it wasn't just like the program fell off, right? They were implicated in the FBI investigation into college basketball and were eventually cleared. And it took a while for them to kind of get that stink off the name of the program. And once they did, you saw what they were able to put together. That season that they had in 2022 with Isaiah Wong and his kind of breakout year when they made that run to the Elite Eight was a really, really impressive thing. And then they completely outdid it last year, making it to the Final Four. I don't think that we gave enough credit last year to just how damn good Isaiah Wong was and just how impressive Jordan Miller were, right? Like, I think Isaiah Wong was the ACC Player of the Year, and if you listen to anything that Randolph Childress says, I'm replacing him tonight, by the way. I guess I got called in from the bullpen to actually do the show, but Randolph would tell you that he voted for Jordan Miller last season for ACC Player of the Year. And, making it to the Final Four at George Mason is probably enough to kind of give you enough cachet that you need in these coaching streets for however long you want to be in these coaching streets. But
for sure,
being able to build Miami, so he did it. Like, that's the thing that I just think is so incredible about what he did. Like, he built Miami once. He won an ACC regular season title. He made a Sweet 16. He had a couple of years where they were really, really good, like back in the Shane Larkin and Angel Rodriguez days. Then he gets implicated in the FBI stuff. The bottom completely falls out. They're horrible, right? They're under 500 for 3 straight years. And then you come back and you do the exact same thing again. You go out and you make it to the Elite Eight. Then you come back as a top 4 seed and you make it to a Final Four when you're not supposed to make it to the Final Four. Like, it's just what he does as a coach, the way he lets his players play. It's a lot of fun to watch, and I think that he deserves, like you said, Sweeney, he can leave whenever the hell he wants to leave. If he wants to stay there coaching in South Beach or in Coral Gables, that's a hard thing to say. Coral Gables for the next 5 years while he's just kind of cashing paychecks and enjoying the warm weather down there. Do it, man. You earned it.
Yeah, I don't think Coral Gables is that hard to say, Rob. I think it's just it might have been hard for you to say. Look, I'm not kicking him out either. I would just rather enjoy my retirement money in Coral Gables as opposed to trying to deal with all the bullshit that I'm going to have to deal with in this day and age. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my personality. But I can't wait to retire. I can't wait to just not work. The idea of not working is, oh my God, that's great, man. So, and I love what I do, but it's just you know what I mean, Sweeney? There's something to be said for just, hey man, I took George Mason to a Final Four. I took Miami to a Final Four. I've done what I'm going to do in this game. Let me just enjoy my life now.
Maybe asking the 24-year-old his thoughts on retirement, maybe not the smoothest way of going about things, but I would say I would agree. If you can sit at home and enjoy the sun, look, if Jim Larinaga wants to sit on the beach for the rest of his life, round of applause, Jim. Enjoy it. I hope
John Martin's second kid was born. John Martin's second kid was born 3 weeks ago, and this dude is already sitting here saying it's time for me to retire. Man, I gotta get out of this. I gotta hit the beach.
Yeah, I think I can never retire now, as you know, Rob. That's off the table. But I definitely wish I could. I just want a vacation. I just want to go somewhere for 3 weeks and then just kind of see how I feel after that. But at any rate, yes, Jim Larinaga's not getting kicked out, but you just wonder if a frustrating season like this kind of makes that decision a little easier. All right, we have a lot more to get to. Baylor's going to go final, so we'll talk about that win for them. Overreaction Monday. Lots more to come. You're watching Field of 68 After Dark. We're on SiriusXM. Back after this.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 as we all get ready for the best month of the year, March Madness. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD150 and you will get $150 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $5 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD150. That's FIELD150. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $150 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD150 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available in one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in Philly or New York, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create a new account in each state. It's easy, it's simple, and it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the conference tournaments and for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and my personal favorite, a nice little parlay boost here and there. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today.
Welcome back to Field of 68 After Dark. We're here on SiriusXM. We're here on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We are on X. We'll be here until top of the hour, and then we're going to move over to Stadium for last call, which is where we're going to take all your burning questions. So get those in. If you got questions for us, we'll answer those over on Stadium here in about 45 minutes or so. All right, on to other matters tonight. Baylor is putting the finishing touches on a very impressive road win as 2.5-point underdogs on TCU. This, of course, Rob, is after a really soul-crushing loss in overtime against Houston, where they get in such a huge hole, a 17-point hole in the first half, fight all the way back, have a chance to take the lead there at the free throw line late, and unfortunately, the big man can't convert, and Houston gets it done in overtime. What do you make of Baylor just the last couple of games and coming out on the road, which, as we know, is very difficult to do, and getting a win that looks like this at TCU?
I mean, it could have been very easy for them to go to TCU, who's good, and laid an egg and find a way to lose a game to a team that can get up and down the floor, that is tough and physical defensively, that kind of wants to climb up in you. And it's nice to see them be able to bounce back and not have to have that carryover, right? Like the game that they lost was only 48 hours ago. It was Saturday afternoon. We're not talking about something where they had, a couple days to be able to sit here and try to prepare. It's basically like Saturday, you go home, you rest up, you come back Sunday, and you're already traveling on the way to get to TCU. So to see them have this turnaround win is big. I'm so torn on this Baylor team. Like I don't think they have what they need on the defensive end. And I thought that they were going to be better this year, being able to guard the ball. I thought the addition of Jaden Nunn, I thought that bringing in Jacoby Walter, who's big and long and athletic and has all the physical tools that you need to be a good defender. I thought that it would kind of make up for some of the deficiencies that they had on that end of the floor. But it turns out they're just, they're kind of having the same struggles they did last year when it comes to getting stops. And to me, I would put them, they're in the same conversation as the Kentuckys of the world, as the Alabamas of the world, as these teams that can go out and they can put up 90 to 95 points on you on the nights when they're playing well, and they can look like the best team in college basketball on the nights when they're playing well, and then all of a sudden it's one of those nights where the defense just doesn't show up, and the shots aren't going down, and they can kind of get picked off. So they haven't been blown out of any games this year. They haven't had any really embarrassing performances outside of the Michigan State one back in December. But I don't know. I am not as sold on this Baylor team as I was the last couple of years with them.
I think they've shown a lot of grit. I was just going to say, I think they've shown a ton of grit the last 2 games. I mean, for one, as Rob said, to go on the road 48 hours after a gut-wrenching loss and not only play really well, but defend at a super high level. I mean, this has maybe been their best defensive performance of the year against TCU. Obviously, part of that's TCU not known as being a great shot-making team. We understand that. But I think big picture, it's really impressive the way that they've responded, and really impressive the way that they responded against Houston, right? I mean, they got popped in the mouth. They could have rolled over against the number 1 team in the country, and they battled back and really should have won that game. So, look, I think to me, I've been waiting to see the toughness, right? The different level of edge that this Baylor team has to say, all right, yes, we know we can outscore you, but we can beat you in other ways too. And I think we've started to see that here the last 2 games. That's an encouraging sign to me about this Baylor Bears ball club.
Yeah, and I just want to shout out Eve Missy too, John. He is the guy that you referenced that missed the free throw. He had a layup that would have put them ahead in overtime where he caught it and he went up to go try to dunk it. And I don't know how he threw it over the backboard, but he threw it over the backboard. He had an offensive rebound where should have been a tip dunk that it didn't come off the rim. Or I'm sorry, it should have been it was a shot that was going in and he went to try to tip dunk it and he got called for offensive goaltending. So he cost his team a lot of points down at the stretch of the game, and it'd be very easy for anybody to point, especially himself, to look at himself in the mirror and say, that's on me. I'm the reason why we didn't win that game. And he came out tonight, 16 points, 6 and 9 from the floor, and a very nice 4 for 4 from the free throw line. So shout out to him, man. That's not – look, when you are a freshman in college and can bounce back from something as painful as that to come out and have this kind of performance, leading scorer for the team, that says a lot.
Yeah, look, in a year where it's like there's maybe a couple of teams that I would actually consider to be ahead above the rest, I'm pretty intrigued by Baylor. Like they shoot the free throw, they shoot their free throws well. They have a couple of freshmen there, especially their Jacoby Walter, who we know can get off and score at will. Like they're intriguing enough to me, Rob. Like if you're just talking about long shots, a team sort of outside the power structure. I mean, I know you just said that you're not sold on them, but if we're talking about through the lens of a team that we don't consider a consensus, great one, why not Baylor? I mean, there's some fun there to be had with that group.
Well, I think that they can beat literally anybody in college basketball on any given night, right? Like I think that if they play UConn, there's a world where they make 14 of 28 from beyond the arc. Even Missy outplays Donovan Clingan, they can beat UConn, right? I think you can probably say the same thing about Purdue. But I also worry about the nights when those threes aren't going down. Like when you can't guard and you are a team that shoots as many threes as they do, that relies on being one of the top 2 3-point shooting teams in all of college basketball. I think that is, what's the saying? You live by the 3, you die by the 3. So I think that's the concern that I have with them.
Yeah. Let's just sort of handicap the Big 12 here. Houston's on top. Iowa State's, bearing down on them there at 10-4. Sweeney, can anybody catch Houston? I mean, it just feels like when they can go on the road and beat Baylor like that, it's sort of hard to pick against them. I mean, what a job Kelvin Sampson has done coming into this league and taking over from day one. I mean, that to me is the story. Yeah,
I mean, even if Kansas beats them a second time, it would require Houston to lose again, whether it's to Cincinnati, Oklahoma, or UCF. And those are, the bottom half of this Big 12. I think Houston is in full control of this Big 12 title race. And as you said, John, like unbelievable coaching job, right? I mean, I remember Kelvin Sampson at Big 12 media today saying like there's no, there's no small dogs in the Big 12. Like there's no Shih Tzus. Right. Like it's all tough. It's everybody is scary every night. And he walked in there and was the biggest dog there is. Like they're number 1 in KenPom, top 5 in KenPom 4 years running now. Lose Jarris Walker and Marcus Sasser. Like you're not supposed to be able to do that, right? Like nowhere else in college basketball that is not like the blue blood of the bluest of blue blood is losing multiple first-round picks and turning around the next year and being as good, if not better. Is moving up conferences.
Going to a new league, too, Sweeney. Yes. It's not just being better. They're going to a new league.
Yes. And not just moving up new league, moving from a league that was borderline mid-major to the toughest league in college basketball and may win that league by 2 games. Like if they beat Kansas to end the season, they're going to win the league by 2 games. How unbelievable is that?
Well, I
They
think it's
need
also a
Iowa State
testament to. I mean,
there, but
it is a testament to the way that Houston scheduled, right? Like they were like Kelvin always prepared his teams in the non-conference, so you just kind of invert it, right? So you play. And I'm not saying every game they played in the non-conference was brutal, but they had no problems playing at Alabama, right? I mean, they would go out and they would try to kind of games. So, and it's also Rob a style that just, I mean, it's physical. You know, it travels.
yeah, that's so. My concern with them was what happens on the nights when the shots aren't going down, right? Or I'm sorry, what happens on the nights when the team that you play is making shots at, like, I think at the end of the day, great offense is always going to end up beating great defense. And I feel like there's going to be a point in time where Houston runs into a team that is making a lot of really difficult shots and really on fire from three, and that it can kind of take them down. And the more I watch them, and the more I'm sitting here, I'm like, maybe that just doesn't even matter with this group, right? Like Jamal Shed is so impactful on both ends of the floor. He's the head of the snake for them offensively and defensively. He is the reason why their defense can operate with the level of pressure that they do. He is why they get as many easy shots as they do for guys like Jawan Roberts and Javier Francis and Emmanuel Sharp and LJ Cryer. They have three guys that can really fill it up on their perimeter, and they just understand and know who they are, how they want to play, and what the job is for them, right? And I think we talked about this a little bit with RJ Davis and Caleb Love and the way that they're kind of built. But the more that I watch this group play and the more that I see them just kind of keep rolling through the Big 12, which like I think is a little bit overrated in how good it is. There's just so many teams that are like all kind of as good as each other and as good as the next guy. But to see them just continually roll through the conference is a really, really impressive thing. And I'm kind of at the point where I don't think it's just UConn and Purdue anymore. I think it's UConn, Purdue, and Houston in terms of the top tier in college basketball. And that's not something anyone that listens to the show knows that's not something that I would have said 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, but they just keep doing it, man. Like, and at some point you kind of got to like just tip your cap and say, all right, you know what? I might've gotten this one wrong. That like they know who they are and they play to that style. And that is something that's really, really impressive to watch.
Yeah. The names change and the faces change, but the production doesn't. I mean, that's all Kelvin, man. That's all Kelvin, and the credit to the culture that he's built. The conference changes, doesn't matter. The production and the wins are still there. I mean, I think it's as good of a job as you will see in college basketball. I want to hit this real quick, Sweeney. Jerome Tang has never lost in overtime. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if it's just like he's just living right, but the variance is on his side, 94-90 in overtime. They blow a huge lead in the second half to get there, but I guess all's well that ends well. Tyler Perry has 29, as again, they beat West Virginia 94-90 in overtime. They do have 3 quad one opportunities here to end the season. Any reason to believe, Sweeney, that they can take advantage of them at this point?
I mean, I haven't been sold with just how they played recently. Obviously, beating BYU over the weekend was big, but like it just felt like one step forward, 2 steps back with this group. And even today, an opportunity where, all right, you're coming off a big win over BYU, you get the worst team in the league at home, you're up by 25, everything's great, you're cruising. To smoke that lead, like that scares me a little bit with K-State, and I just haven't seen it. Again, they're not that far off because they have wins over Kansas and Baylor, because they did a little bit in the non-conference, right? Beat Villanova in non-conference, beat Providence, who's a bubble team in the non-conference. But I think they're going to have to win at minimum 2 and maybe even all 3 to put themselves in the NCAA tournament. I would say at minimum they got to get the 2 of them, which means a road win at Cincinnati or a road win at Kansas, and then beating Iowa State won't be easy.
Minute or less, yeah. Rob. I mean, just go ahead.
No, I think that with the way that their resume kind of looks right now, they probably need to win at least 2, if not all 3 of the games that they have left. And they are at Cincinnati, at Kansas, and Iowa State at home. Like that they're probably not winning all 3 of those. We're talking about a team that just lost 7 out of 8, right? So in terms of why they're winning in overtime, I think that Tang's biggest mistake is that he's not trying to play for overtime more. Right? Like, I think you just got to try to get to overtime, because your record is 7-0 when you get to OT. When you don't go to overtime right now, you are 9-11 overall. I think that is a coaching mistake on Tang's part. He's got to find a way to get more games into overtime. And I will just say this. I saw the stat. It came from the Sickos Committee. There are 19 teams in college basketball that have less than 7 wins this season. And Kansas State has 7 wins in overtime. I've never seen anything like this. He's 12-0 in overtime. I think Florida State had a run where they won 14 straight overtime games. I think we can get there by the end of the season, right? I think Tank can pull this one off, play for overtime, get to that extra frame, and guarantee yourself a win at Kansas and at home against Iowa State. And that probably gets him in the dance. Play for overtime, Coach. You got this.
Just keep running.
OT Tang, baby.
11s, man. He just keeps rolling 7s and 11s. We'll come back with Overreaction Monday. We're going to throw some spicy ones at you. Stick around. Field of 68 after dark.
Big news, guys. I am thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Autograph, a company founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. The Autograph Fandom app gives you access to the best college hoops content, fan contests, and exclusive rewards like discounted tickets, all for doing the things that diehard fans like you already do, following your favorite team in the news and listening to podcasts just like this one. When Tom, and yes, I am calling him Tom, we're on a first name basis these days, co-founded Autograph, he had one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. It works like this. You get all of your college hoops content you want in one place. You get articles from your favorite writers, pods from your favorite hosts, contests from your favorite creators, all on the feeds and the sites that you already enjoy. But instead of having to go to all these different places, it all comes to you in one spot, the Autograph Fandom app. But here's the best part. The more content that you consume, the higher you rank in the app. As you consider to level up in status on the app, you can unlock unique rewards curated exclusively for you. So download the free Autograph app in the App Store and use the referral code F68, that's F68, or tap in at the link in the description below or in the podcast app of your choosing to start earning points for doing something as normal as listening to this very podcast. It really is that simple.
Welcome back. Field of 68 after dark. Thanks for being with us here on a Monday. I'm John Martin. He's Rob Dauster. He's Kevin Sweeney. You can see all of our causes. My cause, my cleats, is to abolish the AP poll, which we're going to get into a little bit later. Rob, do you know what day it is?
It is Monday, which means it is time for some overreactions, I believe.
It's time to make like my wife and overreact. Let's get it. Oh, she always overreacts. Unbelievable. Let's start with this one. Houston, Rob's love child, better than UConn and Purdue.
I'll take that one first. I'm not ready to say that they are better than them, but I am ready to say that they belong in the same tier as UConn and Purdue. I said this the other day. I feel like we got a little bit ahead of ourselves in saying that UConn and Purdue had fully separated from the rest of college basketball. The Purdue plays in a conference that it might as well be a mid-major outside of themselves. Once you get outside of West Lafayette, Indiana, they play home games in Ann Arbor. Okay, that's the situation that we're talking about right now with the Purdue Boilermakers. So I think that they kind of you get through the rolling in the league, you get a bunch of wins, and it's a little bit of a different level than what Houston has been able to do as they're running through the Big 12. Same thing with UConn. If you looked at their schedule, it was really, really backloaded, and they played a bunch of like the bubble teams in the Big 12. They played DePaul and Georgetown twice each, and they put together this 14-0, 14-game winning streak that was really damn impressive. But it also came against like a bunch of bubble teams and teams that UConn should have beaten and won all of those games by double digits. So I think that the level of separation that we kind of viewed between UConn and Purdue and the rest of the field was probably bigger than it deserved to be. And I think that Houston has proven that the last couple of weeks, doing things like, going on the road and beating a really good Baylor team. So I'm in on Houston. I think it's a top 3 and then everybody else. And I don't think it's as big of a separation as we probably saw before. Sweeney, am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy. Look, I think the thing to me that I was probably more curious about with Houston to get them into that Purdue UConn category was I just thought the makeup offensively, and we talked about it a little bit last segment, right? Like how do they generate consistent offense, right? I felt like with UConn, they had multiple ways they could score, right? They could flow into ball screens with Tristan Newton. They can, go into, off ball action and get open shots for their shooters with Caravan and obviously Cam Spencer. They could post up with Klingon, right? Like they have so many options. And Purdue obviously can go to Edey. They can play in ball screens with Braden Smith, right? Like they have so many different ways that they could score. I felt with Houston, what would we see when things would go wrong offensively? And I think we've started to learn that Jamal Shed can be that takeover guy. And so if he can be that dude, and he has been in a lot of these big games for them, then they have an opportunity to be just as good as UConn and Purdue. I think they belong in that conversation. So I won't say that they're better. I know that Ken Pom does. I cannot say that they are better, but I think they are on that same tier. If we are building the tier 1 title contender list, it is Purdue, UConn, and I'm willing to include Houston in that conversation.
Willing to include. Did you hear that? It's like charity over here. I'm willing to allow Kelvin Sampson, who has finished no lower than top 2 in Ken Pom since 2021. Sweeney's willing to include him in the top tier. Kevin Sweeney.
I don't think they were waiting for the invitation. I will say though, guys, I would just love to see the matchup with either of these teams, Houston and UConn, Houston, Purdue, simply just because I want to see what Klingon and I want to see what Edey would do against Houston's physical front. Like it's obvious, like with like Juwan Roberts is not going to just like he's not going to overwhelm you. He's not going to try to look to score the ball necessarily, but like we know what he does with his physicality. He's going to be undersized. He's going to be at a disadvantage there, but Rob, brother, I would love to see it. I would love to see the Houston front line against either of those guys. I hope we get it.
Hey, can I tell you this, John? Where are you from?
901, Memphis 10.
From Memphis, right? Memphis is in what conference?
The American Athletic Conference, baby. Let's go.
Is there anyone happier to see Houston off doing this to a different league than the league that you have been watching for the last
Dude, like that's why like I have a soft spot for Houston. Because I've seen it up close, man. I've seen it up close
because they're gone now. Yeah, you love them now. You hated them last year.
I loved the meetings though. I loved getting a chance to like see Kelvin Sampson do his thing in the forum. I missed that because like Dusty May is an FAU, like that was the whole thing. Oh, they're going to come in and they're going to replace, bro. That I was sold a bill of goods. Yeah, you got lied to. It was actually Amir Abdul-Rahim who was going to come in there. Kelvin Sampson. Who told me that? Who told me that bullshit? Anyway, we did that yesterday. We don't have to overreact again, Rob. You're getting me all hot and bothered. All right, let's move forward. This is Tom Izzo's last year coaching basketball.
No, I don't think it is. There is absolutely no chance that Tom Izzo is going to go out on a season like this, right? Where it's frustrating and it's disappointing and they don't live up to expectations and I think that they'll probably still make the NCAA tournament. Doesn't seem like that's necessarily a guarantee at this point. And if Tom freaking Izzo is not going out in the NIT, he is not going out in a year where they underwhelm what their expectations are coming into the season. That ain't happening, right? He's going to have a year where he does something good, where he wins the Big Ten, where he makes a Final Four, where they win the Big Ten tournament. He's going out on top somehow. He ain't going out like this. It's Tom Izzo we're talking about. That's not happening.
I think the only thing I would say in response to that, Dauster, and I don't disagree with you, is if Tom Izzo no longer feels like he can win at the highest level with the way that he wants to build a program, right? Like we know Tom Izzo's not going to compromise who he is as a coach. He's not going to all of a sudden say, all right, we got to go take 6 transfers. We got to take 7 transfers. We got to turn this thing around with, mercenaries, ringers, whatever you want to call them, right? Like that's not who Izzo is. It's never who he's going to be. And I think if he got to this offseason and he looked up big picture and was like, look, the only way that we're going to get back to at Michigan State to get back to where I had this program at its peak is doing things a way that I don't endorse, then I will walk away and do something else. I could see that happening. That being said, I do think I think he's got longer than this year in him. I think he's got 1 or 2 more years at minimum before he maybe comes to that realization. But I do think that, the game changing is not something that necessarily Izzo appreciates or wants. And I wouldn't blame him if he just wanted to walk away and not have to deal with that anymore.
Look, I get it, and I get what you're saying, and I totally sympathize with the idea of a guy that has been doing something one way for 25 years at the highest level that has to all of a sudden find a way to do it differently because these rules have changed kind of underneath his feet. At the same time, if you want to be able to win now, you have to go out and you have to be able to recruit some of these transfers that will be eligible immediately. Like freshmen just aren't going to do it right now unless you are going to have in today's day and age, in today's game, what Kentucky is doing is not the norm, right? Starting with playing with all of these freshmen and being able to develop kids. That's something you can still do within your program. UConn is doing it right now, right? They have freshmen that are not really playing all that many minutes, and Jalen Stewart and Solo Ball and Yusuf Sangara and then Jaden Ross and some of these other guys. And they have guys that have been in their program for 2, 3, 4 years, right? The reason why they won the national title last year is because Andre Jackson was there for 3 seasons and developed. Adama Sanogo was there for 3 seasons and developed. You built a culture. You can still do it, but you have to supplement what you're doing by going out in the portal and getting some older guys, right? You shouldn't be relying on bringing in a bunch of freshmen to fill the holes in your roster. You should be going out and doing some of that with transfers that still check all the boxes of the kind of human being that you want to bring in, right? It's still very much doable. Just instead of going out and bringing in 5 freshmen in a class, you go and you get 2 or 3, you get 2 or 3 transfers, and boom, you're done. That's how you end up building these classes. I think the refusal to do it and to kind of get in the portal is a little bit of stubbornness, and he's going to have to find a way to adapt, or it's going to keep going like this for him. And I think that he will. He's too damn competitive to not adapt. But he might be too stubborn not to. I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah. And then last one here before we get to break and hit the back half. Ricky Whitesuit, and St. John's will make the NCAA tournament. Of course, got the win over Creighton, which it sort of feels like they had to have to make that a credible resume. They got it, and they got it in pretty convincing fashion. Rob, start with you. St. John's makes tournament. Overreaction? Yes. No?
I think they have to win at Butler. Like the win at Butler is non-negotiable. They end the season with DePaul and Georgetown, so like they're winning their last 2 games. DePaul and Georgetown, neither of them have beaten a team in the Big East this season that is not named DePaul or Georgetown. DePaul is winless. Georgetown has 2 wins. Both of them came against DePaul. So St. John's is going to win those 2 games. They have to win at Butler because right now they are 2-9 against quad 1 opponents, and they have a quad 3 loss on their resume. They are, Sweeney, you are more in tune with the bubble stuff than me, but they are out right now, and I don't think that they are even one of the first 4 out if I was going to be putting together a bracket. The loss at home to Michigan is not something that has aged very well at all. Beating Creighton at home was massive for them because that's the first win that they have over a team that you could be considered as like a quad. What's Rocco's favorite phrase? Quad 1A wins. That's the only time that you have a quad 1A win in this season on the resume. So they have to win these 3, and then they probably have to find a way to win a couple of games in the Big East tournament. Like they are, I don't even know if they're next 4 out, Sweeney. I think that they probably have like 6 to 8 teams that they have to jump. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say they get it done. It's Rick Pitino, man. He busted out.
I'm trying to figure out, are you a home game? Because Sweeney, he says he isn't. Now he's trying to tell them they're next 4 out. Which is it, man? Are you a bracket guy or not?
I am an everything guy. I can be whatever I want to be, John. Don't try to limit me. Don't hold me down.
Can't put Rob D in a box. All right, Sweeney, can they make the tournament? Will they make the tournament?
I'm going to say they won't, but I will say this. Don't let it come down to a game at Madison Square Garden in the quarterfinals against like Marquette or Creighton for a spot in the tournament, because we know what's happening in that game if that's what we get to, right? Don't let St. John's beat Butler, beat DePaul, beat Georgetown, be 19-12, right on the bubble, right at the cut line, heading in and playing a 2-7 game versus Marquette, because we know what Rick Pitino is doing in that game. He is coming out in the white suit, and they're winning that game at the Garden. So, look, I think they find a way to screw. I don't think they can quite get there. I think they will lose to Butler on Wednesday, and that will end it. But Don't let them beat Butler now, because if they do, watch out.
I really loved his willingness to come out after every loss and just not mince words about how shitty it makes him feel. Like I feel like that's the most relatable thing any college coach has done this year. It's like every loss, it's like, I want to go outside, I want to die of frostbite. This is the most miserable experience of my entire life. And I'm like, Rob, I relate to that, bro. Like, I'm just like, I lose a bet. I mean, it's the most miserable experience of my life.
Yeah, well, look, you know what? You gotta find a way to be able to phrase it a little bit better. Maybe don't throw all of your players under the bus. Maybe don't take shots at every single one of them. Maybe just the guys that you're trying to motivate a little bit. But like it's Rick Pitino, man. He's going to do whatever the hell he wants to do. He's going to say whatever the hell he wants to say, and he's going to contradict himself in the very next press conference. Like he doesn't remember what he said 20 hours earlier. It's like whenever I promise my wife that I'm going to go out and take out the trash or do the laundry or fold the dishes or whatever it ends up being, I got to find a way to be able to say, oh, sorry, I forgot.
We'll come back, talk a little Kentucky, a little AP poll. Mr. Everything, Kevin Sweeney, John Martin, you're watching Field of 68 After Dark. We're back after this.
What's going on, guys? Before we get back to the show, I need to let you all know about the Field of 68 Daily, an all-encompassing college basketball newsletter that arrives in your inbox, you guessed it, daily. For less than $1 a week, you'll wake up every morning to more than 1,500 words detailing everything that you need to know to stay up to date on the world of college basketball. From the notable mid-major upsets to the stars that are out injured to the breakout performances that only our team of college basketball junkies watched. The Daily is edited and produced by Mike Miller, who spent more than 2 decades running NBC's digital written content, and is subscribed by more than half of the Division I coaching staffs, the biggest names in college basketball media, and the agents that work as power brokers in the sport. For just $50 for the year, you get access to the same information that the insiders get. And before we get you back to your regularly scheduled Field of 68 content, let me tell you guys about the Field of 68 merch store. Head over to field68.shop for officially branded Field of 68 apparel. Whether you're supporting your favorite team in the student section or from the couch, there is no better way to gear up than the latest from the Field of 68. The best thing I can say about our merch is the quality of the product. Anyone that has ever worn a t-shirt knows how frustrating it is when the neck gets all stretched out and the bottom of the shirt starts looking like the bottom of bell-bottom jeans. And there's nothing worse than a hoodie that loses its snugness that makes it such a perfect way to stay warm during the cold winter weather. Whether you're shopping for yourself or for the college basketball fan in your life, everything you need is at the Field of 68.shop.
Welcome back to Field of 68 After Dark here on a Monday. Appreciate you guys making us a small part of your Monday. We are bearing down. This is the last Monday of the regular season, right? Or am I making that up? Is there one more week? Am I fast forwarding? I'm fast forwarding, man. I'm just like every other college basketball team. We're just ready to fast forward to the NCAA tournament. Okay, so we have one more regular season week. This is the second to last. And we appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us here on a Monday. I'm John Martin, joined tonight by Kevin Sweeney and Mr. Unlimited Rob Dauster. We are continuing our Overreaction Monday, so let's get to it while we have a little bit of time left here on Sirius. Kentucky. Not only is Kentucky back, Rob, they're the best team in the Southeastern Conference.
Oh, man. I don't know if I would quite go that far, but I will say this. In the last 4 games, they've played 8 halves of basketball. And I would say in probably 5.5 of those 8 halves of basketball, they've been really impressive on the defensive end of the floor. I thought they were really good against Mississippi. I thought that they were fantastic at Auburn. One of the best defensive performances I've seen from a Kentucky team in a long time. First half against LSU, they gave up 27 points. They melted down to the second half. It is what it is. You got a bunch of freshmen. I thought against Alabama, probably the first about 30 minutes of that game before it ended up being a blowout, but I thought that they were really, really impressive defensively there as well. And the big thing with them is that if they guard, we know what their firepower is offensively. If they guard, then they are going to be a team that is going to be a nightmare. They are like, look, we said it earlier, right? Baylor, Alabama, Kentucky, all of these teams are kind of these defense optional teams where you have to say, if they get stops, they can do this. If they do that, they can make a run. And I think that what we've seen from Kentucky is they've figured out a little bit the rotations that they need to use to be able to find a way to make a run. And it helps that Justin Edwards looks like he has kind of gotten the confidence and put some things together a little bit, right? And it helps that it feels like DJ Wagner has kind of figured out that, okay, look, I'm going to have to be the best on-ball defender if I'm going to have a chance to win. And most importantly, it feels like Coach Cal has really kind of gotten to the point where he knows he has to play Ugonna Onyeso with the 5, like 32, 38 minutes a game, right? Big Z, I know he had 18 points the other night. Like, a lot of that came in garbage time. He's still lost defensively. Aaron Bradshaw, he ain't ready for the SEC on the defensive end of the floor. He ain't ready offensively either. Ugonna Onyeso has got to be your like 30-plus minute a game guy at the 5. And if you do that, and Justin Edwards continues this upward trajectory, and DJ Wagner keeps putting in that effort on the defensive end, and you keep finding ways to be able to make sure you get Dillingham and Reed Shepherd like 55 to 60 minutes between them, Kentucky's going to be really, really damn good. And the turnaround that they've made in the last 2 weeks on the defensive end, I never would have seen this coming. I've been so impressed by what they've turned into, and since they were embarrassed by Gonzaga, embarrassed by Tennessee.
Sweeney.
What if I told you there was an SEC team that already is elite defensively, that has an elite ISO scorer, that has an elite point guard? I'd say that's the best team in the SEC. That's Tennessee, right? That's Dalton Knecht. That's Zakai Ziegler, who's been phenomenal lately. Like, they have dominated teams the last 4 games. Like, they have been really, really good. And with Adu continuing to emerge, like, to me, I know we haven't had these games right yet. Like the SEC race is still so up for grabs because there are so many games against these top 4 teams down the stretch, right? Tennessee schedule, home Auburn, at Alabama, at South Carolina, home Kentucky. It's a gauntlet. But my prediction is that Tennessee is going to control that stretch. They're going to win 3 out of 4 of that stretch. And if they do, they're going to win the SEC championship. And to me, like, that team, I know the concerns about Rick Barnes in March, the concerns about the offense, the things we've gone over year after year after year. I also just watch them play, and I think this is a different Tennessee. I think this is a team that has an elite shot maker in Dalton Knecht who can take over and gives them opportunity to win games, that has a point guard who can play make and get others involved, that has guys in their proper roles, right? Like Josiah James being a glue guy, Vescovi hitting shots, Adu in pick and pop. Like, I just feel like they have the options and the depth that it takes to really make a move in March. And to me, Tennessee is the best team in the SEC.
Hey, John, do you think he's willing to allow Tennessee to be in the SEC favorite conversation?
Well, you have to ask him. You'll have to ask him nicely. I think Tennessee will have to ask him, pretty please. Will you allow them? Will you? No, look, I think the road to hell is paved with believing in Rick Barnes in March. What would define the best, though? Is it like who goes the furthest in the tournament? Like, that's, you know what I mean? Or is it just who looks in the regular season? Like, how do we define best in this context, Rob?
Well, I actually, I just sang the praises of Kentucky, but I do believe that Tennessee is the air quotes best team in the SEC. They guard the hell out of the ball, and they have the one guy in the conference that like can go out and get you 35 or 40 literally on any given night, because he's done it probably 8 times this season, right? In Dalton Knecht. Yep. The reason why I trust them more is that when they get to like big possessions down the stretch of a game, like, watch them. They don't even call offense anymore. They don't even run sets. They don't do anything other than just give the ball to Dalton, say, get the hell out of the way. He sits there. He figures out whatever big guy he could take advantage of. He calls him up for a ball screen, and they go and they play a 2-man game with shooters in the corners and Zakai Ziegler on the wing, right? That's what they do. That is their offense on big possessions down the stretches of games. And they just say, hey, we got a dude that's probably he's 23 years old. He's going to be a top 10 pick. He's going to be scoring 15 points a game in the NBA next year. Try to stop him. Good luck. See what happens. Right. And I do think that there's an element of, what do they call it in AAU? It's the do him offense, right? Where you just give the ball to your best player and say, get the hell out of the way. Like, normally that's not a great way to coach, but sometimes when you got don't connect, like that might just be the best way for Rick Barnes to coach down the stretch of games.
Yep. All right. Last one here before we get ready to head over to Stadium, which is that the AP poll should be destroyed, ended, eradicated, abolished, abandoned, ended forever. Rob.
I don't necessarily think that it needs to be abolished. I feel like there can be some additions to the people that are voting in the poll, right? Like if you are, and I have a great deal of respect for the people that are beat writers that are covering one team, that are locked in on one team, that are focused on one team. But if you are locked in and focused on one team and you are covering, let's just say North Carolina, right? And they play a 2:00 game on a Saturday, you got to get to the arena by noon. You're covering that game the whole day. You're in press conferences until like 5 or 6, and you're writing your story. You're probably not getting home until like 7 or 8. You missed the entire day of basketball. What are you watching? How are you able to watch these teams? How are you able to know what some of the teams around the country are doing, right? And I'll give you another perfect example. When I was writing for NBC, I had a vote in the AP poll. When I started the Field of 68, my vote got revoked. So they are saying that they're like, I'm not tooting my own horn, but if I'm not one of the 65 people that you want voting on who's going to be in the top 25, like it feels very strange to me that as I get more immersed in college basketball, they pulled that vote out of my cold, lifeless fingers, and I've missed it ever since. But that's where I stand on the AP poll. I don't think the people that are voting in it are sitting here saying we're trying to mess this thing up, but I think you need to be able to expand the number of people that are voting in this to add some flavor in terms of who is actually watching all of the teams across the country. Like I said, if you're locked in on one team, it's impossible to be able to cover everything else in college basketball when your entire day on a Saturday is devoted to one team and one program.
Sweeney, Rob left you 4 seconds. Go.
I just think that we need an overhaul in thinking, right? The AP poll is not built on – like the AP poll currently is voted on based on who lost most recently. That is a really stupid way of operating, right? Like you can't miss the forest for the trees. Like we gotta think bigger, and I think the AP poll is very flawed right now.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put in vaulted right now as we speak that the number 25 team in this AP poll is not going to get an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament. In fact, not going to make the NCAA tournament at all. That's what I'm going to put in there. Let's end our reliance on the thing. You can do it. You can have people vote on it, but we don't need to rely on this thing as some barometer of who the good teams in college basketball are and who aren't, because it's clearly not indicative whatsoever. Vaulted, that's where I'm putting it. It's an app that allows you to participate in daily cash prize pools without an entry fee. It's the place for you to store your own predictions forever. And by using the Vaulted Challenge feature, you can prove you're smarter than your friends. Go download the Vaulted app, spelled VLTED, to challenge your friends, store your predictions, and join daily cash prize pools without an entry fee. All right, we are moving over to Stadium for last call. So we're going to get to all of your questions that you've sent throughout the night. Appreciate you guys spending some time with us tonight. For Rob Dauster, for Kevin Sweeney, I'm John Martin. We'll see you tomorrow and catch you on Stadium.